He was about to go to prison. Then he was found dead, the Christopher Scholtes story. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you are watching from in the comment. It was supposed to be just another summer day. Hot, humid, unforgiving. But for 2-year-old Lila Scholtes, July 12, 2024, would become the day her tiny life ended. Trapped inside a sweltering car while her father, Christopher Scholtes, went about his day as if nothing was wrong. No one could have imagined how a simple morning routine could spiral into a tragedy that would shock an entire community, and later lead to an even darker twist. A father found dead before ever setting foot in prison. It started like every other morning in the Scholtes household in Westville, Indiana. Christopher woke up around 7 a.m., made himself a cup of coffee, and scrolled through his phone. Lila was still asleep in her room, clutching her favorite stuffed giraffe, her blonde curls tangled around her face. Her mother, Emily, was already at work. Christopher had promised to drop Lila off at daycare that morning before heading to his job at a local auto repair shop. Nothing about that day seemed unusual, except the heat. The forecast warned of a record-breaking high 95 degrees by mid-morning. Inside a parked car, that temperature could climb to 120 degrees in less than 10 minutes. A deadly combination, but no one thought it would matter, not yet. Neighbors saw Christopher carrying Lila out to the car, a sleepy toddler with one shoe missing, resting her head on her father's shoulder. He buckled her into the back seat, turned on the car, and drove away. Dash camera footage from a nearby gas station later showed his vehicle leaving the area at 8:13 a.m. Everything looked normal. He stopped at a coffee shop drive-thru, ordered a large iced latte, and chatted casually with the barista. He seemed relaxed, focused, ordinary. But somewhere between the coffee shop and the auto shop, just a short 10-minute drive, Christopher forgot that his daughter was still in the backseat. That single lapse of memory would change everything. Investigators believe Christopher arrived at work around 8:32 a.m. He parked, got out, locked the doors, and walked inside. What he didn't realize, or refused to realize, was that Lila was still strapped in her car seat, in the back, directly under the rising sun. As the hours passed, the temperature inside the car soared. 110, 120, 130 degrees. Lila would have started crying, screaming, then eventually gone silent. By 10 a.m., her small body could no longer regulate its temperature. Her organs began to fail. By 11 a.m., she was gone. It wasn't until nearly 5 p.m., 8 hours later, that Christopher finally walked back to his car. According to witness reports, he froze in the parking lot. Then he screamed, a sound one coworker described as inhuman. When police arrived minutes later, they found Christopher on the ground next to his car, sobbing uncontrollably. Inside, little Lila was still strapped in her seat, motionless. Her skin was flushed red from the heat, her eyes half open. A pink sippy cup lay beside her, melted from the scorching air. Paramedics tried to revive her, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead at 5:27 p.m. At the police station, Christopher was inconsolable. He told detectives he forgot. He said he thought he had dropped her off at daycare, that he didn't realize she was still in the car until it was too late. I saw her car seat, he said, but my mind didn't process it. I thought it was empty. Investigators weren't sure what to believe. Was it an accident? Or was there more to the story? Because the details didn't add up. Security footage showed that Christopher never stopped at the daycare that morning, not even for a moment. Phone records revealed that he texted friends during the day, posted memes online, even joked about the heat. Meanwhile, his daughter was dying in the car outside his workplace. When the news broke, the community was furious. A 2-year-old child, left to die in a hot car by her own father. Protesters gathered outside the police station, holding signs that read, "Justice for Lila," and "No excuses for neglect." Social media exploded with anger. "How do you forget your own child?" one commenter wrote. Another said, "That's not an accident. That's murder." But others defended Christopher. They said he wasn't a monster, just a man who made a terrible, irreversible mistake. Still, prosecutors saw it differently. On August 2, 2024, Christopher Scholtes was charged with second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. The prosecutor, Lisa Morgan, stood before reporters and said, "This was not a momentary lapse. It was gross negligence. His actions, or lack thereof, directly caused the death of his daughter." Christopher was taken into custody but later released on bond. He appeared in court with his head bowed, avoiding cameras. The judge ordered him to surrender his passport and remain under strict supervision until sentencing. By September, Christopher agreed to a plea deal, admitting guilt in exchange for a reduced sentence. He was scheduled to begin his prison term on October 14, 2024. But he would never make it that far. The night before his scheduled surrender, Christopher spoke briefly with his mother on the phone. She said he sounded quiet, almost calm. He told her he was ready to accept what's coming. But there was something in his voice, a heaviness she couldn't quite explain. Later that night, neighbors noticed his lights still on past midnight. They assumed he was nervous about prison. They didn't know that by morning he would be gone. At 6:45 a.m., police were called to Christopher's home after a relative couldn't reach him. When officers entered, they found him lying unresponsive in his bedroom. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. An empty pill bottle lay on the floor beside his bed. A handwritten note sat on the nightstand. The note read, "I can't live with what I've done. I see her face every night. I'm so sorry." He was pronounced dead at the scene. News of Christopher's death spread instantly. Some saw it as karma, a man escaping the punishment he deserved. Others saw it as another tragedy in an already unbearable story. Emily, Lila's mother, issued a short statement through her lawyer. "There are no winners here. My daughter is gone. Now he's gone too. All that's left is pain." The community was divided. Grief, rage, and pity all tangled together. The man who killed his daughter, whether by mistake or neglect, would never serve a day behind bars. And for many, that was a hard truth to swallow. Investigators later ruled Christopher's death a suicide by overdose. Toxicology confirmed high levels of prescription medication in his system. He had left behind photos of Lila, arranged carefully on his nightstand, next to her stuffed giraffe, the same one she'd slept with the morning she died. At his funeral, the pastor said, "2 lives lost, both victims of one irreversible mistake." But not everyone agreed. For some, forgiveness was impossible. For others, it was all they had left. Even after the case closed, one question lingered: how does a father forget his child? Experts called it forgotten baby syndrome, a tragic psychological lapse where routine overrides memory. It's rare but real. Still, for those who knew Lila, that explanation wasn't enough. Because behind every statistic is a face, a family, a future that will never come back. And in this case, justice came too late for everyone involved. Today, Lila's name lives on through a local foundation that raises awareness about child safety in hot vehicles. The sun blazed over Phoenix, Arizona, on July 12, 2024. It was one of those suffocatingly hot desert mornings, the kind that makes the air shimmer and the pavement burn. That morning, Christopher Scholtes had woken up late. His wife, Alyssa, had already left for work. Their 2-year-old daughter, Riley, was still in her pajamas, her soft curls sticking to her cheeks. He was supposed to take her to daycare before heading to his construction job. It was routine, every morning. But that day, something broke the routine. Christopher loaded Riley into her car seat. She smiled, holding her stuffed giraffe. He kissed her forehead, buckled her in, and said, "Daddy loves you." He got into the driver's seat. He started the car. The air conditioner blasted hot air. He turned on a podcast, something about football. He drove off, but instead of going to the daycare, he went straight to work. He was distracted. His phone buzzed. His boss had texted they were short on workers. "Need you ASAP. We're behind schedule." So he drove straight to the job site. He parked his car. He jumped out. He grabbed his lunchbox. And he walked away, leaving Riley behind. By 9 a.m., the temperature had already reached 95 degrees. By noon, it climbed past 110. Inside a parked car, those numbers meant death. In just 30 minutes, the inside temperature could soar to over 130 degrees. Riley's car seat was in direct sunlight. No one noticed. Not the coworkers who passed by the parking lot. Not the neighbors nearby. Christopher was on the job site for hours, pouring concrete, sweating under his hard hat, not realizing that his daughter, the little girl who called him Dada, was dying just a few hundred feet away. It wasn't until 5:15 p.m. that everything came crashing down. Christopher walked back to his car. He opened the door, and the smell hit him. He froze. His mind couldn't process it. He turned, looked in the back seat, and saw her, Riley, her head tilted to one side, her skin pale, her lips dry, her little giraffe still in her hand. He screamed, a sound so raw, so broken, that people across the lot stopped what they were doing. "Call 911, someone shouted. But it was too late. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They tried CPR. They tried everything. But Riley was gone. When the officers arrived, Christopher was on his knees in the gravel. He was shaking, crying so hard he could barely breathe. "I forgot her," he kept saying, over and over. "I forgot her." Detectives pulled him aside. They asked questions. Where had he gone? Why didn't he check the back seat? He couldn't answer. He kept hitting his head with his hands, repeating, "How could I forget?" His co-workers watched in silence. Some of them cried too. Others just stared, stunned. How does a father forget his child in a car for 9 hours? The news broke that same night. Local stations ran the headline, "Toddler dies in hot Sayar. Father under investigation." Social media exploded. Some people called him a monster. Others called him careless. A few said it was a tragic mistake, one that could happen to anyone. But the comment sections were brutal. "Lock him up. He deserves the same fate. No excuse for this." Christopher was still in shock when detectives came to his home later that evening. They arrested him, charged him with second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. Alyssa collapsed when she heard. She couldn't even look at him, the man she loved, the father of her child. The person who had promised to protect their baby had failed her in the worst way imaginable. The interview room was cold. 2 detectives sat across from Christopher. A camera recorded every word. He looked hollow, pale, broken. Detective Ruiz leaned forward. "Chris, help me understand what happened today." "I don't know," he whispered. "She fell asleep. I thought I dropped her off. I swear to God, I thought she wasn't in the car." "You didn't check?" I just didn't think to." Ruiz slammed his pen on the table. "You didn't think to look at your daughter's car seat before leaving the car for 9 hours in this heat?" Christopher broke down again. "I deserve whatever happens. I killed my baby." His lawyer, seated in the corner, finally spoke up. "That's enough. He's done answering questions." But the damage was already done. Every tear, every word was on tape. A week later, Riley was buried in a small pink casket. The church was filled with flowers and silence. Her favorite song, "You Are My Sunshine," played as people filed in. Christopher wasn't allowed to attend. He sat in jail, watching the service later on a small TV through a recorded stream. He cried until he couldn't anymore. He mouthed the words along with the song, "My only sunshine. Please don't take my sunshine away." The case gained national attention. Talk shows debated whether it was an accident or neglect. Experts weighed in. Psychologists explained forgotten baby syndrome, a tragic phenomenon where parents forget children in cars due to stress, routine, and fatigue. But prosecutors didn't buy it. They said he was reckless, that he ignored warning signs, that Riley's death was entirely preventable, and that someone needed to be held accountable. In February 2025, Christopher Scholtes stood before the court. He looked thinner, older. His orange jumpsuit hung loosely on his frame. The prosecutor's opening statement was brutal. This man left his child to die in an oven on wheels. He had every opportunity to save her, and he didn't. The defense argued that it was an accident, a tragedy, not a crime. They played home videos of Christopher and Riley, her laughter, his voice calling her "my little star." Even the jurors looked shaken, but emotion alone couldn't erase the facts. 9 hours, 110 degrees, no air conditioning, no water. Before the trial could conclude, Christopher made a decision. He took a plea deal: second-degree murder, child abuse resulting in death, a combined sentence of 12 years in prison. He told the judge, "I'll never forgive myself. I'm guilty. I failed her. I failed everyone." The courtroom was silent. Only the sound of muffled sobs came from the back. Alyssa's family. When the judge handed down the sentence, Christopher nodded slowly. He didn't argue. He didn't cry. He just said, "Thank you." He was supposed to begin serving his sentence in October 2025. Until then, he remained under supervision at home, awaiting his surrender date. Neighbors said he rarely came outside. He stopped talking to friends. He barely ate. He spent hours sitting on the back porch, staring at Riley's swaying in the wind. His house, once filled with laughter, was silent, like a museum of grief. And as the surrender date approached, people wondered, would he ever make it to prison? Because deep down, some believed he wouldn't. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The days before October 17th, 2025 were eerily quiet. The date was marked on every court calendar, every media outlet's countdown. That was the day Christopher Scholtes was supposed to surrender himself. The day he would walk into prison to begin serving his sentence. The day he would finally face punishment for leaving his 2-year-old daughter, Riley, to die in a hot car. But he never made it, because before that day came, something happened that no one saw coming. Christopher had been living alone for months. After the guilty plea, Alyssa, his wife, moved out. She couldn't look at him, couldn't share the same space where their daughter once laughed. He didn't blame her. He stayed in the house, the one filled with baby toys, faded photos, and memories too heavy to touch. He didn't turn on the TV anymore, didn't answer the phone. Neighbors said they'd see him sometimes in the evenings, sitting on the porch, a can of beer beside him, eyes empty. The same man who used to toss his daughter in the air, who laughed until his stomach hurt, was gone. Something had broken, and there was no fixing it. 3 days before he was supposed to surrender, Alyssa agreed to meet him. It was the first time they'd spoken in months. They met in a small park near their old daycare, the same one where Riley used to play. Christopher looked rough. His beard had grown out. Dark circles framed his eyes. His hands shook when he spoke. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he told her. Alyssa nodded but said nothing. Her face was cold, unreadable. "I know you hate me," he continued, voice trembling, "but I need you to know I never stopped loving her. I thought about her every minute, every second. I see her everywhere." She finally looked at him. Her voice cracked. "Then why didn't you look that day, Chris? Why didn't you check?" He started crying, right there in the middle of the park. "I don't know," he whispered. "I wish I did. I'd give my life to trade places with her." She stood up. Tears filled her eyes too. "Then maybe you already have," she said softly, and she walked away. That night, Christopher sat at his kitchen table. The house was dark. Only the dim light from the stove illuminated the room. He took out a sheet of paper. He began to write. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. "To everyone I've hurt, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Riley was my life, my everything. I failed her. I failed Alyssa. I failed God. I can't live knowing I caused her pain. Every morning I wake up, I hear her crying. Every night I see her face. I was supposed to protect her. I can't carry this anymore. I've been given a punishment, but my sentence started the day she died. I'm sorry. I love you, Riley. Daddy's coming home." He folded the letter carefully, placed it in an envelope. wrote one word on the front, Alyssa. Then he set it on the counter next to Riley's photo. The photo where she's smiling, her little hands covered in birthday cake. The next morning, a neighbor saw Christopher outside. He was sitting on the steps again, staring at the sunrise. "Morning, Chris," she called. He smiled faintly. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" That was the last thing he ever said. Because later that evening, he didn't answer the door, didn't answer texts, didn't post anything online. When his probation officer tried calling, the phone rang endlessly, then went to voicemail. By the next day, no one had heard from him. On October 16, 2025, one day before his surrender date, a welfare check was called in. Police arrived at the house just after 8 a.m. They knocked. No answer. They circled to the back door. It was unlocked. They stepped inside. The smell hit them instantly. They found Christopher in the living room. He was sitting on the couch, a framed photo of Riley on his lap. The TV was on, showing old home videos from a flash drive. Riley's second birthday, her running through the sprinklers, her giggle filling the empty house. On the table beside him lay 2 empty bottles of pills, a glass of water, and the letter. He was gone. The news broke within hours. Father found dead one day before prison sentence. Social media lit up again. Some said he took the coward's way out. Others said he finally found peace. Alyssa didn't speak publicly at first. When she finally did, her voice was quiet, trembling. "I lost my daughter last year," she said. "Now I've lost my husband too. There's no winning here, only loss." The police ruled it a suicide. No foul play, no evidence of anyone else in the home. But not everyone believed it was that simple. People started talking. Some neighbors claimed they heard arguing the night before. Others said they saw an unfamiliar car parked nearby. A few online sleuths speculated that maybe someone else had been there, maybe Alyssa or someone from her family. Maybe Christopher didn't take his own life. But the toxicology report confirmed it. He'd taken a lethal mix of sleeping pills and painkillers. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. He planned it. He wanted it that way. They buried him next to Riley. 2 graves, side by side. Father and daughter. The headstone read, "Together forever, Riley and Daddy." Only a handful of people came. A few relatives. Some neighbors. No cameras. No news crews. Alyssa stood alone at the grave for a long time. No tears. Just silence. When she finally walked away, she whispered, "I hope you found her." Online, the story became a debate that never ended. Was Christopher a monster or a man crushed by guilt? A murderer or a broken father? Some true crime podcasts called it a case of justice served. Others called it a tragedy born from tragedy. People argued in comment sections. He deserved prison. He suffered enough. At least he's with his daughter now. But the truth, the painful, gut-wrenching truth, was that 2 lives were gone. And no one would ever really know what was going through Christopher's mind in those final moments. Weeks after his death, Alyssa finally opened the letter. She'd kept it sealed on her dresser, too afraid to face it. Inside was something more than an apology. It was a confession, but not the kind anyone expected. "There's something I didn't tell the police. That morning, I stopped at home before work. I went inside to grab my lunch. I heard her cry, but I told myself it was the neighbor's kid. I knew. For a second, I knew. And I still drove away. I can't live with that." Those words shattered her, because it meant he wasn't entirely forgetful. He'd had a moment, just one brief moment, where instinct had tried to save Riley, but he ignored it, and that was the weight that crushed him. In the months that followed, the story faded from headlines. But for those who knew them, the echoes never stopped. The empty swing in the backyard, the toys still packed in boxes, the framed photos that no one had the strength to take down. Friends said the house still felt alive, like Riley's presence lingered in every corner. One neighbor swore that late at night, she'd hear the faint sound of a music box playing from inside. Riley's favorite lullaby, "You Are My Sunshine." Police officers, reporters, and safety advocates began using the Scholtes case as a grim reminder, a warning about the dangers of hot cars and human forgetfulness. But for those who followed the story, it was more than that. It was about guilt, grief, and a mind that couldn't bear the truth. Christopher wasn't a villain, but he wasn't a hero either. He was a man who made a mistake that destroyed his world, and couldn't live with what that mistake made him become. The world had already made up its mind. Christopher Scholtes was guilty. He'd left his daughter, Riley, in a car. She died in the heat. He couldn't live with the guilt. End of story. At least that's what everyone thought. But when investigators stepped back into the house, something didn't sit right. Something about that death, his death, felt too clean, too perfect, too planned. Detective Mara Klein was the first to notice it. She'd been there the morning they found him, and she couldn't shake the details. The house was spotless. Not Lonely Man clean, sterile. Everything looked wiped down. No fingerprints, no clutter. The letter sat precisely centered on the counter. The envelope perfectly sealed. The photo beside it was angled straight toward the couch, as if staged. And Christopher's body? Not slumped, not sprawled, positioned. He was sitting upright, legs crossed, hands resting neatly on his lap, almost peaceful, like someone had arranged him that way. The coroner ruled it suicide. Toxicology matched. Overdose from sleeping pills and painkillers. No defensive wounds. No bruising. No forced entry. Case closed. But Mara wasn't convinced. She asked for the toxicology report again. She wanted to see the timing. If he'd really taken the pills himself, the distribution of the drugs in his system should show gradual absorption. But the levels were inconsistent. Spikes that didn't fit with self-administration. Too concentrated. Too sudden. It was as if everything hit him at once. Like he didn't take them willingly. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood again. Most said the same thing, they hadn't seen anything. But one neighbor, Mrs. Cartwright, remembered something odd. The night before, she said, there was a car parked right outside his house. Dark SUV. Tinted windows. I thought it was one of those delivery drivers. But it sat there for hours. She shrugged. Then it just drove off. No license plate. No clear make or model. No security cameras pointed in that direction. Just another ghost in the night. The day before Christopher died, he made one last call. Not to family. Not to friends. To a number with no registered name. The call lasted 9 minutes. Then he deleted it from his recent log. But digital forensics pulled it back. The number traced to a prepaid phone purchased at a convenience store in the next town. No identity linked. No video footage available. Whoever it was, they wanted to stay invisible. When police spoke to Alyssa, she looked hollowed out. Tired. Lost. She confirmed the park meeting days before his death. Said she hadn't seen him since. When asked about the call, she froze. What number? She asked quietly. When they read the digits aloud, her lips trembled. I don't know that number, she said. But the tremor in her voice told a different story. Mara noted it. After the interview, Alyssa's attorney called. She wouldn't be answering any more questions. As soon as the news of his death spread, true crime forums exploded. Reddit threads, TikTok videos, YouTube breakdowns. Everyone had a theory. Some said he couldn't handle prison, that he took the easy way out. Others said someone helped him, that maybe Alyssa wanted him gone before the media circus started again. Then came the wild theories, conspiracies claiming he was silenced, that maybe he was about to expose something bigger. One viral post read, "What if it wasn't guilt? What if it was guilt and a secret he was about to tell?" The comments flooded in. You mean like someone made it look like suicide? Check that call. 9 minutes? That's not random. There's more to this. And the more people talked, the more the mystery grew. 3 weeks later, Mara received an envelope. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of a handwritten note. It wasn't the suicide letter. This one looked different, less careful, more rushed. The note read, "They know. I told them everything. I can't take this anymore. Tell Alyssa I'm sorry. No signature. No date. It was found, according to the letter sender, inside the trash bin behind a gas station 2 blocks from Christopher's home. The handwriting matched his, but the timeline didn't. If he wrote that before dying, who mailed it afterward? Investigators dug into Christopher's bank records. They found 2 unusual withdrawals. One $500 a week before his death. The other $1,000 the day before. The cash was never deposited anywhere else. Never spent. Gone. ATM footage showed him taking out the money, but in both videos he was looking over his shoulder. Nervous. Jumpy. Like someone was watching him. What really happened inside that house remains uncertain. But here's what investigators pieced together. He was last seen alive at 7:20 p.m. Lights went out around 8. Phone activity stopped at 8:07. Between 9 and 10, the SUV neighbor spotted earlier reappeared on the street. Parked for 12 minutes. Then drove away again. By 11 p.m., the house was silent. If Christopher did it himself, that window makes sense. But if someone else did, that's when they would have had time. Months after his death, Alyssa broke her silence again. In a TV interview, she said, "People keep saying there's more to the story, that I know something, but I don't. I just wanted him to take responsibility. I never wanted him dead." Her eyes watered. She looked exhausted, but online few believed her. Comments flooded in. "She's hiding something. That wasn't grief. That was guilt. She knows who called him. No evidence ever tied her to the death." Still, her silence kept the suspicion alive. Privately, Sheriff Tom Mullins admitted the case was strange. "There's something off about it," he said to reporters years later. But suspicion isn't proof. Sometimes the truth dies with the person who lived it. He ordered the case file sealed. Said there was no public threat, no foul play determined. But Mara Klein kept a copy. Something in her gut told her it wasn't over. 6 months after the case closed, the digital forensics team re-examined Christopher's laptop. Buried deep in his files was an audio clip, untitled, time-stamped 3 days before he died. It started with silence, then breathing, then Christopher's voice. "This is for whoever finds it. I don't know if I'll be alive by the time you hear this. I made mistakes. I hurt people. But there's more. Someone's been following me, calling, threatening. They said they'd make sure I paid if I didn't keep quiet." Then a pause, shuffling, a faint knock in the background, a whisper, "They're here." Click, end of file. Mara sent the recording for audio analysis. Experts confirmed it wasn't edited. It was authentic. But the knock and whisper in the background, they were never identified. She tried tracing the file's metadata, but someone had accessed it remotely 2 days after Christopher's death. The IP address was masked through a VPN. Untraceable. Whoever was behind it knew what they were doing. While digging through old case records, Mara found something buried in the original court documents. A name that kept popping up. Jason Vickers. He was Alyssa's cousin. A man with a record: theft, assault, drugs. He'd been helping Christopher with legal advice in the months before the trial. He'd also been seen driving a dark SUV. But when questioned, he denied everything. Said he hadn't spoken to Christopher in weeks. No evidence tied him to the house. No fingerprints. Nothing solid. But the connection was there. And so was motive. A friend of Christopher's later told police something chilling. The morning of October 21st, 2024, began like any other day. Except it wasn't. Because this was the day Christopher Scholtes was supposed to surrender himself to authorities. It was the day he would begin serving his prison sentence for the death of his 2-year-old daughter, Maya. A tragedy that shattered his family. A case that divided the community. And now, an ending that left everyone asking one haunting question. What really happened to Christopher Scholtes? At 7:03 a.m., Christopher's fiancée, Emily Parker, texted him. "Are you ready? I'll drive you to the station." No response. She tried again at 7:45, then again at 8:10. Still nothing. By 9 a.m., she began to worry. Christopher was supposed to report to the county jail by 10 a.m., but the silence was deafening. Emily drove to his house in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, her heart racing. She expected to see him packing, maybe drinking coffee, nervous, but ready. What she found instead would change everything. The house was quiet, too quiet. The car was in the driveway, keys still in the ignition, phone on the passenger seat. She walked inside. "Chris?" she called. No answer. Her steps echoed through the hall. The air felt heavy, cold, almost unnatural. And then she saw him, lying motionless on the living room floor. For a split second, she froze, unable to process what she was seeing. Then she screamed. She ran to him, shaking his shoulders, crying his name. But it was too late. Christopher Scholtes, the man who once faced a lifetime of guilt, was gone. At 9:14 a.m., 911 received a frantic call from Emily Parker. "He's not breathing. Please hurry." Paramedics arrived within minutes. They checked for a pulse. None. They checked for signs of trauma. None. They pronounced him dead at 9:32 a.m. He was 38 years old. When police arrived, the first question was obvious. What caused his death? There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no blood. The scene was eerily calm. Detectives noted a bottle of prescription medication on the kitchen counter. Next to it, a glass of water. The bottle was half empty. The medication, anxiety pills prescribed to Christopher after his daughter's death. It didn't take long before whispers began to spread. Did Christopher take his own life? Or did someone want to make sure he never went to prison? While processing the scene, officers found a handwritten letter on the dining table. It read, "I can't live with what I've done. I see her face every night. I tried to be strong, but I failed her. I failed everyone. Please forgive me." It was signed, Chris. Detectives photographed it carefully. But here's where things got strange. The handwriting didn't perfectly match Christopher's known samples. There were subtle inconsistencies. Letter loops that didn't align. Slants that leaned the wrong way. For investigators, that opened a chilling possibility. Was the note real? Or had someone else written it to make his death look like suicide? Days later, the Allegheny County Medical Examiner released a statement. Christopher's cause of death was determined to be an overdose of prescription sedatives. But the autopsy revealed no alcohol in his system, no other drugs, no signs of foul play. Manner of death: suicide. But not everyone believed it. Christopher's parents refused to accept the official explanation. He wasn't suicidal, his father told local reporters. He was scared, yes, but he was ready to face the consequences. He wanted to make things right. His mother echoed the same sentiment. He loved that little girl. He was devastated, but he wasn't a coward. He wouldn't do this. The family demanded a second investigation. They hired a private forensic expert who reviewed the autopsy findings. The expert agreed that the dosage was lethal, but added something interesting. There's no evidence of intent. Could have been accidental. Perhaps he took too many pills to calm himself before surrendering. That theory would split the internet in two. When news broke that Christopher Scholtes was dead, social media exploded. On Reddit, Twitter, and Facebook, the comments poured in. Some called it karma. Others called it tragedy. One post went viral overnight. "A guilty man escapes justice again. His daughter didn't get a second chance. Why should he?" Another post countered, "He was already punished every day by his guilt. Maybe now he's finally at peace." Podcasts picked it up. True crime forums dissected every detail. People debated whether his death was justice or another injustice. Detectives reviewed Christopher's phone records. He hadn't made or received any calls that morning. No suspicious activity. But there was one unsent text message in his drafts folder. "Please tell my mom I'm sorry." No timestamp, no recipient saved. That single line haunted investigators and his family. Was it a goodbye message he never sent? Or something else entirely? In July 2024, Christopher had pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and child abuse after leaving his daughter in a hot car. He claimed he forgot she was inside. Prosecutors said otherwise. They argued he left her intentionally, angry after an argument with her mother. The evidence was brutal. Surveillance footage of him walking away from the vehicle. Texts showing frustration with fatherhood. Witnesses who said he seemed detached that day. He took the plea deal to avoid a longer sentence. He was due to serve 15 to 25 years in prison. But now, with his death, the case closed permanently. The community of Monroe County was divided. Some felt relief. He took an innocent life. He deserved whatever happened. Others felt sorrow. This whole thing was a tragedy from start to finish. 2 lives lost, and a family destroyed. Candlelight vigils were held for Maya. But this time, some also lit candles for Christopher. Because no matter how people felt, one thing was undeniable. The story was over. But the pain was not. Even after the case was closed, theories kept spreading online. Theory 1. Suicide by guilt. He couldn't face prison or the shame. Theory 2. Accidental overdose. He took more pills than intended, trying to calm himself. Theory 3. Foul play. Someone, possibly a family member or someone angry about Maya's death, wanted revenge. But there was never any solid evidence of anyone else's involvement. Detectives found no fingerprints other than Christopher's. No sign of forced entry. No strange DNA. Still, the whispers never stopped. At Christopher's funeral, his mother clutched a framed photo of Maya. "She's waiting for him," she whispered. But others in the crowd shook their heads. "He doesn't deserve that peace," one woman muttered. The contrast was stark. One family, 2 victims. One by heat, one by guilt. Months later, a journalist covering the case asked Emily Parker if she believed Christopher took his own life. She paused before answering. "He was haunted. I think he thought this was the only way to be with her again. But that's not peace. That's pain." Her voice broke. Tears filled her eyes. He made a terrible mistake. And now that mistake has taken everyone. In the months after his death, the Kyrie Starks Foundation, named after his daughter, began funding programs to prevent hot car deaths across the U.S. Ironically, Christopher's case, while tragic, ended up saving other lives. The foundation pushed for new vehicle safety laws, requiring automakers to install rear seat alert systems, technology that reminds drivers to check for children in the back seat. A legacy born from heartbreak. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.